Thursday, July 25th. Again today, German bombing fleets attacked the British Isles and British shipping. And the Air Ministry announces the Germans now are using American-made bombers, spoils of war seized from France. The British have continued their raids on German objectives. And in the Mediterranean, British and Italian planes have exchanged attacks. Now for the latest news from Europe, we bring you reports direct from Berlin, London, and Rome. First, the report of William L. Schreier, reporting from the German capital. Go ahead, Berlin.
This is Berlin. The quiet before the storm, before the war in England, which everyone is talking about, begins, continues. Even the heat wave you're having over there, or were having a day or two ago, makes the front pages of the German newspapers. And no wonder, because we're shivering over here. At lunch yesterday, we sat around a roaring fire in the fireplace. At a diplomatic garden party last night, I noticed the women wearing heavy coats. The Havana conference also is receiving considerable attention from the German press. Though the newspapers in Germany, and indeed the Wilhelmstrasse, are showing a good deal of reserve about the Havana meeting, German antipathy to the American plan for a big cartel to dispose of South American products, and antipathy, too, to the whole anti-German attitude of the United States does creep out. The German news agency dispatch from Havana, published in the Berlin press this morning, leads off with a story to the effect that the ABC states of South America will have nothing to do with what it calls the plan for the economic domination of the South American continent by the United States. The DNB notes with some satisfaction that Argentina, Brazil, and Chile are not represented on the Havana Committee for Economic Cooperation. The Berlin press today publishes an article from the Diplomatic Correspondence, an organ which expresses the view. Though the United States is not named, it is clear who is meant when the publication states that it cannot be overlooked how some of the states of Havana are trying to provoke a feeling of alarm, to provoke a sentiment of hostility against what it terms the New Europe, that is, Germany and Italy. And it reminds the South American states about adopting anti-European measures, which it goes on to say might provoke counter-developments over here and lead to South America's isolation. Germany's position on the whole in regard to South America seems to be this. It hopes to have back, when the war is over, its South American markets and its South American sources of raw materials. The Romanian Prime Minister, Mr. Zigurtu, and his Foreign Minister, Mr. Manolescu, left Bucharest last night for Germany. At Salzburg, they will confer with Herr von Ribbentrop, later possibly with Herr Hitler, and Saturday they go on to Rome to see Mussolini. Romania has jumped into the Axis bandwagon with a bang. German dispatches from Bucharest today say that Romania is going to take over the oil concessions now largely in the hands of foreigners, especially the British. The Shell interest in Romania, say the dispatches, will be put under a Romanian commissar and their wells made to increase output. Most of that output will go to Germany. The Bulgarian Prime Minister and Foreign Minister are also coming to Germany this week. Their opposite numbers in Hungary were here only a short time ago. One interesting report about the outcome of all these talks is that one of these days the armies of these Balkan states are probably going to demobilize for good, with the money spent on their upkeep, a considerable part of any Balkan budget, going to more productive and peaceful enterprises. Some backing up to this report is given in a Bucharest dispatch to the Deutsche Allgemeine Zeitung this morning. It says that now that the big powers, Russia, Germany, and Italy, have agreed on spheres of interest and a common policy in the Balkans, and France and Britain have been practically eliminated from this part of Europe, there is no more danger of war there. And it follows, it says, that there is no more need of these small states to support expensive armies, which would be useless against the big nations anyway. These states themselves, says the dispatch, are not in a position to be a military factor against the big powers. The German correspondent also hints at the eventual solution for the minority problem in Romania, which has 1 or 2 million Hungarians and quite a few Bulgarians, will be an exchange of populations such as took place between Turkey and Greece. This is Wilhelm Schneider in Berlin, returning out of Columbia and New York.
This is New York, and here is the latest news of the Havana Conference of the American Republics. Today, a resolution is to be introduced, providing a reciprocal aid pledge among the 21 nations. The Venezuelan delegation proposed the reciprocal defense plan yesterday. And here's the latest news from the Balkans, supplementing what Mr. Schara has just told you. Romania has seized control of the country's biggest oil company, Astra Romana, a subsidiary of Royal Dutch Shell, in which the British have large investments. Edward R. Murrow now reports from the British capital. Go ahead, London.
This is London. Britain's House of Commons, where so much history has been made and so many opportunities missed, is certainly one of the most interesting and unique legislative bodies in the world. Cabinet ministers spend long hours answering or dodging questions ranging from the state of the drains in a small English village, the progress of the rat-catching campaign, to matters of high military and diplomatic policy. Sometimes one sees many members fast asleep. At other times, there are only a few conscientious members scattered along the leather-covered benches. The other day, when Sir Kingsley Wood introduced his budget, the House was half empty before he'd finished. In this House of Commons, like most legislative bodies in democracies, many members owe their seats to wealth and influence. Often it seems that the House wastes a lot of time on petty issues, but frequently it presents an example of democracy in action, and very determined action, too. That happened last night. For nearly 3 hours, Sir John Anderson and Sir Donald Somerville, the Attorney General, attempted to defend their bill permitting special one-man war zone courts to impose the death penalty without such penalty being subject to review by judicial authority. For 3 hours, these two ministers fought a valiant rearguard action. They took cover behind all kinds of legal subtleties. They argued that what they wanted was speed in time of crisis. But members of all parties indicated that what they wanted was legal justice for British subjects. They made it clear that they proposed to fight the bill line by line and word by word. And they challenged the Home Secretary and the Attorney General to put their bill to a vote. And democracy won. A pledge was given that sentences imposed would be reviewed, and that any Briton sentenced to death by these special courts would have the right of appeal. Another great carve-up of the Balkan map is expected to result from Hitler's conferences with representatives of Romania, Bulgaria, and Slovakia during the weekend. King Carol may be left as the ruler of a small state dependent entirely on Germany. If Hitler decides to satisfy the claims of Hungary and Bulgaria, there won't be a great deal left of Romania. It is believed here that Hitler is desperately anxious to set up his new European order in the Balkans and assure himself of their supplies of food and oil before Stalin continues his creep along the Black Sea. The stories of divided counsel in the German High Command are appearing again. This morning, the diplomatic correspondent of the Daily Telegraph claims that Goering, Goebbels, and Keitel are insisting that the attack on Britain must not be launched, while Ribbentrop and Himmler and the other extremists are pressing for immediate invasion. Other papers warn that these stories of divided counsel should not be taken too seriously, since they've been heard before, and since it may be another move to give added strength to German propaganda. The German press and radio continue to complain about Britain's Home Guard. It's nothing but a murder gang, according to the Germans. The British have not objected to that description, and they may indeed adopt it as a sort of unofficial label, just as they accepted the German label of contemptible for their army in the last war. 2 American planes piloted by Germans attacked England yesterday. They were said to be chance-bought dive bombers, probably the same plane which is known in the United States as the Vought-Sikorsky Corsair, manufactured on Long Island to the same standard as the United States Navy models. One of these was knocked down by a British Supermarine Spitfire. The other limped back to France with a damaged wing. How many other American planes the Germans captured in France and other occupied territories is not known here. But Royal Air Force pilots have told of fighting off American Curtiss planes on recent patrols over enemy territory. A large force of German bombers delivered another attack on a convoy in the North Sea early today. Repulsed once, the German raiders returned to unload their bombs. For the first time in weeks, there was a lull in German air activity over this island last night. No reports of raids were received between midnight and dawn this morning. Yesterday, the Minister of Pensions generously revised the amount of money to be paid to civilian air raid casualties. Married men will get about $6.60 a week if they are temporarily injured. And women will get a little more than half of that. Provision has also been made for children and for those totally disabled. In the case of death, pensions may be paid to dependents. Now, there were heavy civilian casualties in an Italian air raid on the crowded suburbs of Haifa in Palestine. The raid occurred yesterday. 46 people were killed and 80 injured, according to reports here. There are some 15,000 refugees in London, and while they're being maintained with food and clothing, they're completely destitute. So after today, they will be given pocket money, 30 cents a week to adults and 10 cents to children. I return you now to CBS in New York.
We've heard from London and Berlin. Now the news of latest developments reported from the Italian capital by Cecil Brown. Go ahead, Rome.
This is Rome. Italian bombers again raided Haifa in Palestine. The High Command has just announced that the oil reservoirs and refineries were hit and fire started. All of the Italian planes returned. The British say 10 bombers flew over Haifa and dropped between 70 and 100 bombs, and confirmed that there was property damage. The British also say that 46 civilians were killed and 88 injured. This is the second time Italian bombers have penetrated to the eastern end of the Mediterranean. It's thought probable that the bombers took off from the island of Rhodes in the Dodecanese Islands. These are near Turkey and 600 miles from Haifa. Italian raiders also attacked the British naval base at Alexandria, but no results are given in the communique. The bulletin says in yesterday's operations, 4 British planes were destroyed. A 4-engine British machine was attacked over Malta by fascist fighters and severely damaged. The British raided Bardia, an Italian base in Libya, but the bulletin reports they were repulsed. 3 British planes were shot down, and 1 Italian ship failed to return. Massawa, the Italian base in Eritrea in East Africa, was attacked by the British, and the Italians say they shot down 1 plane. Italian planes raided Guéderet in the Anglo-Egyptian Sudan and bombed supply trains and dumps. The war bulletin reports the failure of another Italian submarine to return to its base. Rome had an air raid 2 nights ago, and it was announced today that 2 persons were killed and 4 injured by anti-aircraft shells. No mention is made of bombs being dropped either in Rome or the surrounding area. Most Italians take the air raids rather calmly. Many go out on the balconies to watch the fireworks in the sky. Others dutifully go to the basements of buildings which serve as air raid shelters. For the first time in 3 years, Mussolini is going to receive journalists. The Duce intends to hold a mass interview either on Saturday or the 1st of next week. The interview will take place in the Duce's office at Palazzo Venezia, and it will be open to foreign and Italian correspondents. The journalists are submitting their questions in advance so as to save time during the interview. The redesigning of the frontiers in southeastern Europe appears scheduled for this weekend. As you know, the Romanian Prime Minister and Foreign Minister are going to Salzburg tomorrow. There they will be told by Hitler and von Ribbentrop about the future destiny of Romania. As we see it here, Romania is to be partitioned. Hungary would get part of Transylvania, and Bulgaria all or part of Dobruja. By the way, the Bulgarian ministers are also going to Germany, and it is reported that Hungary as well may be represented. According to the indications here, Romania also will be told how she must cooperate in supplying oil to the Axis powers. On Saturday, the Romanian ministers are coming to Rome. They will sit down with Mussolini and Foreign Minister Tano for the same lesson in geography and the value of Axis friendship. As it's seen here, these conversations over the fate of Romania mean the beginning of the end of British influence in southeastern Europe. Whatever the motives of the Axis powers may be in the Balkans, all the signs point that Rome and Berlin are now in a position to dictate the peace they want in that section. As it stacks up today, they can do it without resistance from the Balkan countries themselves or the resistance from Great Britain. The great enigma in this section is Russia. If any negotiations are going on between Russia and the Axis powers for a division of spheres, nothing is being said about it here.
Thus we conclude this morning's report of European developments reported from Berlin, London, and Rome. Larry Elliott speaking. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.